Welcome to the Arroyo Podcast. We have some exciting news, a bit of a background story on some of the things that God's been doing in our church in this season. So I think this is a good opportunity for us to share. Glad that you guys are listening, and thank you for your support. And
But first, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Our Christmas episode.
And I am wearing a Story Coffee crew neck, so shout out to our sponsors.
Shout out
at Story Coffee. Just kidding, they're not our sponsors. But
They will be sponsoring our
love them.
Yeah, doing a little
Grand opening
There
on
it is.
January 5th. There's the bridge.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Our church is meeting for the very first time on Sunday at our new building on January 5th, our grand opening. We're having a Story Coffee pop-up. We're going to be going through the Gospel of Mark and just some really, really, really exciting times, because for those of you that don't know, we've been meeting at a movie theater now for over a year, which has been great. And we've loved it, and being in the public and people seeing their movies while we're doing church. But really, I think over the last probably only 6 months into being in the movie theater, we're like, oh, this is great, but we kind of want something that's a more long-term solution, a place that we can call home, that's more permanent, where we don't have to set up every week, where we could have better facilities for kids to have a safe and fun environment, where we can really just build community. And we just kind of started to pray and look and see, okay, God, what are you doing? Where are you leading us towards? And because of a connection to you, we got connected to a pastor who had been the pastor of the church on this property. But do you want to share that part of the story, kind of how we even got connected to the church that our church is now going to, be meeting at, and, anyways, we'll share more details on it, but just kind of the initial connection.
Yeah, I think so. Over the summer, I think it was in June, I was reconnecting with Holly Johnson, and she was sharing with me this organization, nonprofit 360 Serve, that supports indigenous pastors across the world in places where the gospel it hasn't really been sown, and people haven't experienced Jesus, or in areas where the church is persecuted. And this nonprofit supports indigenous pastors to be able to full-time do ministry and just live on a month-to-month basis. And she was super excited sharing this organization with me, and just hearing it, felt a conviction about it. And so I got excited about it, shared it with you guys, and through that connection and future partnership that we eventually decided to step into, we met Mark, who is the founder of the organization, and that kind of built the bridge to the next part of our story.
Yeah, because we started supporting them. We, I think, currently support 4 different church planners through 360 Serve, which is a great ministry to support. If you're looking for a missions ministry to support, they're a great ministry to partner with and come alongside of. But Mark, who's the president and founder, he called me one day to talk about the ministry that we've been supporting and the pastors we're supporting. But he also said, hey, earlier this week I was kind of praying and fasting, and you came to mind, because I know this woman who has a pastor. Her dad's a pastor, and he's been pastoring this church for 20 years. He's looking to maybe retire, and he's looking to kind of hand the baton off to somebody and to kind of take, the next chapter. And it's a church in Livermore off of Concannon. And I was like, okay, that's cool. And he's like, well, would you be interested in like maybe getting connected to him and maybe seeing if like there could be a partnership there? Yeah. And so I said, yeah, sure, send me his number. So Pastor David O'Brien got his number, and basically over the course of 3 months, like, we talked a lot. We prayed together a lot, and after I think 3 months, he decided to kind of hand the baton off to me as the pastor, and now Arroyo gets to meet on the property, and now we're in the process of just partnering together, and now Arroyo has a new place that we can call home that's like a permanent place to meet at. And it's just so incredible how God orchestrated this all together, because it really started with just a small step of obedience and something not even related to the property. You know,
Yeah.
we were praying for a new place to meet so that we wouldn't have to be a mobile church anymore, so that we could have a more established presence in the Tri-Valley. But it really started with just a small step of obedience of like, hey, there's this ministry that supports pastors in China and, you know, in Africa
Uganda.
and all these different places. And it's like, okay, yeah, we're going to do that. And we felt compelled to do it. And in fact, I was almost skeptical of it at first because you were the one that found out about it. We're like, we need to do this. We need to do that. And I was like, well, I don't really know anything about it, you know, whatever. And then you're like, no, I'm setting up a meeting with the guy that founded it. And I'm like, okay, fine. We meet him. And it was obviously a perfect fit.
It was an instant connection relationally. We immediately just felt the sense that it was going to be a good partnership. And it's cool too, because, you know, at that time we were pretty actively looking for other options.
Yeah, we were looking to buy a property. We were looking to rent a warehouse. I mean, I talked to hotels.
We were on the verge of pulling the trigger in more than one opportunity.
Yeah.
In that time span. I think that's so cool
Yeah.
about how God works oftentimes. It's like you give a lot of effort towards doing the right thing in different areas and you pursue it with passion. But at the end of the day, God's plan and his purposes are fulfilled. And I just love that about the sovereignty of God is like you follow him faithfully, not knowing exactly like 5 steps ahead. But if you're just faithful with what's in front of you, God will eventually guide you to where you're supposed to be. And I think that this scenario is a great example of that.
It is, and it reminds me of what the Bible says in Proverbs, where it says, "Many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord who establishes their steps."
Yeah.
And there were a lot of plans on my heart and on your heart and all of our hearts of like, okay, you know, is this one it? Is this the next step? Is this the next property? And, you know, there were a lot of plans. And I got to tell you, as you guys already know, like being in Livermore and getting to be on this church property that's been there since the 60s, like that was not a part of my plan. Like we weren't even thinking Livermore. We weren't even looking to Livermore, even though Livermore's literally the next town over. Like it's the next door neighbor to Dublin.
In a lot of ways, Livermore and Pleasanton are like brother and sister. Like they're very, very close. Like, but also culturally pretty different, in my opinion, in some ways, in some regards.
In some ways, yeah. And then
Very
definitely
culturally
similar in others. But it's...
And we grew up in a church in Livermore, which is
and we grew up at a church in
Livermore. And I never
Livermore.
thought like...
Across the freeway.
Oh, I want to, you know, we'll have a church here one day. It never even closely crossed my mind.
Never, ever crossed my mind. But it's clearly what God wanted because, again, we had many plans and the doors just getting shut right in our faces. And it seemed like there was like no progress being made. It was super frustrating. I mean, it's really hard to find a place to meet as a church here in the Tri-Valley. It's really difficult. And, I mean, we had some people straight up say, oh, we don't want to rent from you because you are a church. I mean, just stuff like that. So doors just continually getting slammed in your face. It was a little discouraging. But then when it's God, there's really nothing you could do to stop it from happening. It just it falls into place naturally, and all you have to do is faithfully follow what God is asking you to do. And that's what we did, and look where we're at now. We got this new opportunity to do this grand opening on January 5th, and I mean, just from the people that I've talked to, I've never seen people be more excited about the direction of our church. And I think it's because it's so evident that God is moving and he's preparing a way for something really special and preparing a place for a lot of people to, number one, find him and know him and know what it is to be loved by him and to follow him, but also know one another and be in community and kind of be a light in this community. And it was cool. I was even talking to Chris Montgomery yesterday, you know, a good friend of ours, and he was on the property with me, and he's like, you know, there are a lot of like different churches in the Tri-Valley and even in Livermore, but they're all on the other side of town. Like there really isn't anything in this neighborhood, and
that's a great point.
And in this part of the of Livermore, and I was like, you're totally right. Like it's kind of an untapped area in Livermore, and it's just like. I didn't even know that. I didn't even think of that, but that's where God led us because obviously I think it's where he wants us to be as a church. And so it's just a reminder that like his ways are not our ways. Our thoughts are not his thoughts. And like we could have a lot of plans, but ultimately his plan is going to prevail. Yeah. So I don't know because it's really exciting what God is doing right now. But maybe like backing up a little bit, like we're obviously excited for January 5th, grand opening. Like if you're listening, you're invited, bring your friends, bring your family. But like backing up a little bit, like what has the journey been like at the movie theater over the last year? What are like some challenges? What were some lessons we've learned? Maybe we could share some stories, because I feel like in the last year, we've had like all sorts of stuff happen, whether it's like,
Don't spoil any stories.
okay, well, you share some of your
You go
funniest
first,
stories,
Griffin.
Oh, I
because we've
can't
had
even-
crazy things
Yeah,
happen.
I think you should go first. You should share.
You want to start at the beginning
Share some
with,
of your perspective,
with me and
then
the
I'd love to.
trailer?
Oh yes,
I
That's a
can't.
good story.
I can't even. You know, this is a really good episode for the archive, because we could look back at this like 5-10 years from now and kind of look a little more closely at like this season, because I think it was such a. I mean, in hindsight, it will be a short season, but this last year and a half, or a year and some change, has felt like longer than that.
For
Like,
sure.
It's felt like we've been in the movie theater for ages,
Yeah.
but it really hasn't
No,
been
it's
that long.
It's only been a year and 3 months
Yeah.
or whatever. Yeah.
Still, I mean, we how long were we at the East Hills campus? 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a third of that. I mean, it's still a long time. Like it's a good chunk of the church's history for sure.
Yeah.
But I do remember specifically thinking in my head when we like first got that trailer, we did the trial run of trying to set up, and it was an absolute fiasco. Yeah. And then like that first, I forgot what, but like the first time we were towing it and trying to put it all together and stuff, I do specifically remember going like, oh, we're going to remember this moment for sure.
Jeez.
Like
Yeah.
this is going to be fun.
Yeah.
And every Sunday after that, when we've had to do stuff, it's been fun, because I knew that this was a short season and something that's going to end, but like a fun story of our church that is, we'll definitely cherish it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
over the course of 5-10
Getting
years,
up
whatever happens.
early.
Yeah, it's fun. It's
setting
just a
up,
cool.
tearing down.
Well, it's cool on like that we got to do it, but also, in my opinion, but also that like I don't know, it's like God was preparing us, or like
Yeah.
you know, like
That's it. Yeah.
it's there's that one. It's a very corny like picture that people put in Hallmark cards, but
It's great.
like of Jesus bending down.
Yeah.
With a giant teddy bear behind his back, and
Yeah.
he's like reaching out for to say, hey, to this little girl, like, hey, can I
Right.
have your little toy? And she's like, I don't want to give you my little toy, but he has a giant teddy bear in the back, and it's supposed to be saying like,
Yeah.
give God your little things because He has something bigger for you.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of the
And
vibe
that
that I
actually
got.
that preaches right there.
Yeah, that's the vibe I kind of felt like in this whole thing. Like
Yeah.
God's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you're doing this thing, but just wait, I got something better for you. So it's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Mm.
But yeah, as far as funny stories, the very first one was like within a week of
Jeez.
us having the trailer and
Yeah.
dude, I didn't even know. I think it was after our setup day, like our trial day.
Yeah.
I'm
it
pretty
was, I
sure.
think. Yeah.
Well, for
think.
context, we had all this new equipment,
Yeah.
trailer, gear that we had to operate on Sundays, but we didn't know how to fully use.
Right.
And so we not only had to, set up and tear it down, but we had to learn how to use
the
it
gear.
effectively. And
Right.
all of our audio.
And the guy said, you
visual.
should be able to do this in like 25 minutes.
Yeah. The guy
We
who
were like-
sold us all
The guy that we
equipment.
bought it from.
Yeah.
and-
He was supposed to show us how to do it all.
Easy.
25 minutes, easy.
With
And
3
like,
people, 4 or 5 people.
yeah. And like 2.5 hours later, we're like, we're supposed to do this in 20 minutes. How are we going to do this?
That's crazy.
Anyways, it was one of those trial days before the launch Sunday there. And we were driving it back. You and me were driving the trailer back. You were driving the trailer.
Big mistake.
And
For the last time. That was,
Yeah.
I think, the last or second to last time I drove. the
yeah,
trailer.
and we were coming out for
We were
some
leaving
reason.
it. Yeah.
I don't know why we were leaving. We were going somewhere. I don't know where.
Oh.
But I was behind you. I saw you took that turn way too tight.
Way too tight.
I started yelling, "Hey, hey, hey!" But I'm in my car.
Whoa.
Actually, we may have even been on the phone. Actually.
We were on the phone.
And I go, "Stop! You're going too close. Stop! But you kept going. Classic Michael Dwight scene where you're driving straight for the lake.
No.
There's a lake there. And you're
And
just
there
like,
was a gate.
I got it.
and it was a gate. You took
Yeah.
the turn to the gate a little too tight, and
Jeez.
you smacked that gate with the trailer, and
Yeah.
it popped the tire right away
Popped the tire, and I knocked the gate off
the
the track.
Yes.
And the manager came out cussing, freaking out.
Yeah, guns a-blazing. Yeah,
all this stuff,
and we were trying to back it up. I got in there trying to back it up, popped the back tire, so now we're 2 tires down.
That's right.
And the guy's yelling, "Oh, this is gonna cost you a lot of money!" Like he was so angry.
Yeah.
And then we ended up calling the tow truck.
Waited
We
for
tried
like
to do it
3
for
hours.
ourselves.
Yeah.
Neither of us had AAA. We were trying to like figure things out.
That was a
And
nightmare.
anyways, we called the tow company. He came in with the rig, basically like brute forced it off of the gate,
Jeez.
and then loaded it onto his trailer bed and towed it to my house. And then like the next day, they fixed we had somebody
Yeah.
come out and fix the
I
tires.
feel like
but-
half of our stories are going to revolve around the trailer.
The
that
trailer
happened, and then
being
the tra-
stolen,
and then the trailer getting
crashing,
stolen.
The
Right.
trailer. There's just so
so
much.
many. And
Also-
to close the loop on this one, they were able
Yeah.
to put the gate back on the track, and everything was fine.
Yeah, we didn't have to. pay
And
for
it
the
was
gate.
like nothing ever happened. It was great.
Yeah.
It was
Other than
stressful and
having
fun.
to pay
But
for
after
the
about 20 minutes, we
towing.
were laughing. We
Oh,
were
yeah,
like,
I was laughing.
this is going to be a
for
good
sure.
story.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we had to pay for the new tires,
So-
and
Yeah.
the tow, but
Wasn't that
it wasn't
much.
that big. It wasn't
Yeah.
that big of a deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the last time I think I drove the
Yeah.
trailer. Ever since
You got
then,
some
It's
PTSD,
either
I
been
think.
you or Trevor or Jack or somebody else, or
Yeah.
Noah did it for a while.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the last time where I was like, all right, we're gonna move on from this.
You found your limits.
Josh. You've been fired.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then the trailer was stolen, and pretty much all of our expensive gear was stolen, and
Yep.
Yeah.
they caught the guys and then released them, and then didn't catch the main guy that ran away with most of it, and that was crazy. And we found out that on a Saturday night at I think 10 p.m., so right before church, that it was stolen, and we were able to kind of put all that together and actually have a worship service the next day, which that was crazy. I think my favorite funny thing that happened though was actually only about a month or two ago when we started a fire in the movie theater.
Yeah.
When one of the lighting fixtures or whatever
Yeah.
we used like got broken, and the light bulb, and it literally caught on fire.
That was partly my fault, and we've never discussed this, but
Oh,
I did think maybe that shouldn't be like that. But then I was like, it's probably
Really?
fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Because the light
As it
bulb,
goes up,
the light bulb was touching the
Yeah.
whatever
The fabric.
that was
Yeah.
around it, and I'm
because
like,
of the
maybe-
angle it was on.
Yeah, it was at a weird angle because it was slightly broken.
yeah.
And I was like, I think it's fine. And then I went to the bathroom, and then I came back, and you're like, yeah, there was a fire. I'm
Yeah,
like,
it
what?
was on fire. We
Yeah.
had to
All
put
right,
it out.
did you say fire?
Did you stomp it out or me? I can't remember. I think it was me.
I think it was actually. It was either. Yeah, it was me.
It was
Yeah,
you.
it was me.
Yeah.
Sorry, all these moments just kind of blur together.
Griffin has PTSD.
Did it spark?
No, I
Did
don't
it
have
just get,
PTSD.
was it a
I've-
slow burn, or did it go?
It was a slow burn.
Okay.
I was like, oh, it's a little smoky in here. It's a little. What is that oaky smell? And then
Fire!
look to the left,
Fire!
and it's.
I
like
was the
on
one that
fire.
yelled fire though.
Yeah.
Really?
I'm pretty sure.
You
yeah.
yelled
It got
fire.
smoky.
I said,
And-
yeah,
and
fire.
the
Well, yeah,
smoke-
I didn't
Yes,
want
I
to burn
yelled
the
fire. I
theater
yelled
down.
many
It
things.
just smelled like burnt plastic all throughout the service.
It smelled really bad.
It just smelled bad.
Nice.
We've had people throw away Bibles that were
We
Yeah.
did. That happened a couple weeks
that
ago.
were
weeks ago.
on the table.
People, because when we're in the service,
yeah, we had a table.
we
in
have
the
some of
hallway.
our gear in our table, our Connect
Someone
Center
threw all our
table.
Bibles away. We had a heckler. I think
Yeah.
only the second or third week of our
Yeah.
church services at the Regal, we
Yeah.
had a heckler come.
He's well-meaning, but he was.
He was
Yeah.
a well-meaning heckler, but he wasn't somebody that even knew the church was there. He was going to see a movie and
Yeah.
just stumbled into our worship service and basically heckled me the entire sermon. And I didn't want to call him out, and I was hoping somebody like you guys would help me and tell him to shut up, and you guys
Well,
didn't.
here's the thing, though. You
was
say he
funny.
was heckling, but he also was being very encouraging at the same time.
It was very
he was
distracting.
loving.
He started very
So,
like,
yeah,
amen.
It started as amen, amen, and then it
And then
started with
It turned into kind of a lot of call and response. It
Yeah.
turned into a
Or
dialogue.
he was almost dialogue.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. He thought that he was the co-pastor that day.
He was really loud about it.
He was.
Um,
He came back a few times too, but
several times. And
Yeah.
then I haven't seen him in
Yeah.
Yeah, he hasn't seen him for a
probably 4 or 5 months now.
my favorite things is when somebody walks in with a bowl of popcorn, sits down, and then they get back up and leave. Which,
Yeah.
and we've talked to these people before, and they're like, "Oh, I thought this was my movie."
right.
And I'm like, "You got all the way to your seat,
Yeah.
and you realize, maybe this isn't my movie.
Interesting.
Maybe this isn't Transformers 7."
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then in the beginning, they would play movies on our screen while we were about to start service. That happened a few times too, where they
then we're
forgot that
watching-
our church was meeting there, and they'd
Yeah.
turn on a movie on the screen as we're about to start service, and we'd run to the management and say, "Turn off the movie. What are you doing?"
Yeah.
This is good.
And then they'd have to switch and change their schedule around.
I'm glad we're in a place right now where we can laugh about a lot of this stuff.
It was
But
stressful
in the moment,
Yeah.
all of
stressful.
these things that happen were
I will
Incredibly
say, I think
stressful.
not one week did we not go, hey guys, we got to start late, or we're not going to have music today. Like basically every
We
week, I
made
think
it-
we made it work every week.
Yeah, we definitely started late. A fair
No,
amount
but
of times.
not like an hour late.
But not like an hour late or
The
30
max
minutes late,
late
maybe
was
10 minutes.
15. Yeah.
Yeah.
10 to 15 minutes late. Stuff
There were a
going
lot
on.
of days. I would say there were probably at least half a dozen days. We're halfway through setup. Some crisis happens, like one of the ones we mentioned, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't know if we're able to have a service
Yeah.
today.
I don't know if we're going to be able to do worship.
Like, I don't even know if we're gonna have worship. Are we gonna have sound?
Yeah.
And I think what you learn is like when there's a crisis and a time constraint at the same time, it really tests your patience. It really tests your will.
Yeah.
And your ability to problem solve as well. I think too, like there have been a lot of moments where it's like, okay. And I've always believed this, but it's something that I think I've learned a lot more in this last year is what it actually means to roll with the punches and to problem solve at the same time, because you can get emotional really quickly, or you can be disappointed or frustrated with the circumstance, but you can't be hung up on it too long because
Got to get it done.
you're the only person there, or there's only a few people there that can solve the problem. And so I think that's one of the leadership lessons is like, man, what do you do under pressure? How do you handle it? And are you the kind of person that rolls with the punches without spending too much time trying to point the finger at somebody, or getting too caught up on what the problem is instead of just trying to solve it, trying to make the best of the situation, doing it with as much as joy as possible. And there were some days too. It's like, man, my tank is a little empty, or I don't have a whole lot to give, but I'm still going to show up anyways and just give it my best.
Nice.
It's hard, you know.
Yeah,
but it's good.
being-
We've learned.
being
I think we learned a
faithful.
lot.
Yeah, no, it was a great learning experience, and I think we're really happy to be where we're at now. But like ultimately, the church is people; it's not a property. So we're thankful to have a place to meet that's a lot better and a lot more permanent, and gonna kind of create a lot more opportunities for just community building and just having a better place for families and for kids and all those things. But at the end of the day, like, God has been reminding me through this process is like, yes, this is a great gift, and yes, this is going to help the church grow. But ultimately what matters most is the people. And I think that's probably one of the greatest things I learned during our time at the movie theater is like, man, like this is not an ideal place. Like it works. We're making it work. We're doing the best we can to make it work. But we didn't have a building to like really think about as far as like, oh, like we gotta, remodel this or do this or that. Like it was like, it kind of makes you focus more on the people while you're there, because that's all that you have. Like you don't own any of the other stuff at the theater, or, that's not your focus. It's just the people. So I think that's kind of a key lesson for me. And as we're going into this next season where we do have a more permanent location, I think that we need to take that with us. That perspective of it's the people that matters, and the property is for the sake of having a place for the people. It's not just, it's not the end. It's just a means to the end. So,
Yeah,
I don't know.
I agree.
Any other final reflections on what maybe, because we talked about like the past, reflecting on that, the grand opening. It's really exciting. But what are you guys most excited about for this next chapter of the church? Because that's what this, I think, signifies in a lot of ways. That's why we're calling it a grand opening. We're starting the new year at the new property. What are you guys most excited about as we kind of get into this next chapter and season? Maybe we could share that final reflections.
Yeah, let's see. I'm most excited about not being distracted, for sure. Basically, since you started at East Hills, and then
Turned into
me
a
and
Rhino.
Griffin came, and it turned around. Basically every single moment, our church has been just racked with distractions. Like,
Oh my gosh.
just constant distractions from COVID to,
Jeez.
personnel change, to leadership change, to trying to sell the property, to managing that huge property up there, to then, set up and tear down and all of that stuff.
Right.
To even now, like doing all this stuff to, arrive at this new place and start meeting there, and all the things that comes with that. Like, I just feel like we've been distracted. Like, it's so easy to get distracted with all that extra stuff going on. And I feel like we're going to enter a season where distractions are all gone. we have the means, the people,
Mm-hmm.
and the resources to throw away all those distractions and just focus on the gospel, focus on getting people into the church. And I think that's it's just really cool to see God's plan unfold like that. All of those things were needed that we've gone through.
Yep.
Like, I can't point to one thing that's
Yeah.
like, oh, that sucked, but that's good. We learned a lot there. Or I see how that led to the next thing. I see what you're doing, God.
Yeah.
Like, I see the plan. So yeah, that's kind of the biggest thing I'm excited for.
Well, I love it. I mean, even a little more context and background on what you were saying for those that might be listening and don't know. Like, I got hired as the lead pastor of a church called East Hills Church up in the Oakland Hills back in 2020. It was a older church that was kind of on the decline and needed to be revitalized. And basically the first 2.5 years were really hard, tough. There was a lot of changes. And basically the church was going to die if a lot of changes weren't made really quickly. So it was really tough sledding. And basically once a lot of those changes were made, God made it very clear, because it was on this awesome, 14-acre property up in the hills, that a lot of the people in the church were already commuting from where the church is at now in the Tri-Valley. And so we were led by God through a lot of different people speaking into our lives. Somebody even had a prophetic dream. Just God was really leading us to relocate, rename the church. So that's what we did. And it's crazy that all these things are getting accomplished at the same time, because we moved out into the movie theater in Dublin in faith. The property hadn't even sold yet.
Yeah.
But we felt led to be out here. So even though we had put it on the market, it hadn't sold. And that was over 1.5 years ago that we listed the property. And literally, as we're moving into this permanent home, we're completing the sale of the property at the same time.
It's crazy.
It's God's timing.
Totally.
It's all happening
Crazy.
at the same time. Only God could draw it up that way.
Yeah.
And so it's all these things that have been kind of hanging over our head are all getting dropped. And then now we're in this new place where we're going to be in a new building with a lot of resources from the sale of that property. And, but it's not for the sake of for me to make it on that Instagram of Preacher Sneakers so that I could have a really good salary and buy $1,000 sneakers or have a private jet or anything like that. It's for us to serve the community.
Yeah.
And for us to really do everything that we can to bring Jesus to people in the place that I think we all love and we've all grown up in and lived in. And so it is exciting because we are going to be freed from some of those distractions. Not that other distractions won't come across our way in the future and other challenges won't come. But there's going to be a lot more freedom in this next season to just focus on what we need to focus on. And I think that's super cool. What about you, Griff? I have some thoughts too, but I want to hear yours.
I think a lot has already been said, but I mean, from a practical standpoint, I mean, you could imagine the time constraint that we've just had on Sundays from setup to tear down. It would be nice to have the freedom to not be as concerned about putting so much energy towards setting everything up and putting more focus on prayer, putting more focus on just culture and people after service, instead of having your mind set on, oh man, we got to get everything out of here and we have to tear everything down. And it, the routine of it, I think it was limiting in a lot of ways for us from building a community of people. And I think now that we're moving into a new space where we have the liberty to not worry about those kinds of things, it's going to be really helpful for us. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited to not have to think about those kinds of things. And there will be different things to problem solve and work through. And I'm looking forward to those challenges, but I'm excited to kind of breathe a little bit in our own home and not have to worry about
being a guest in someone else's house.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. There are a few things that come to mind for me. The first is I just want to give honor where I think honor is due. Pastor David, who did want to, he passed the baton off to me and has allowed us to be in this position. Obviously, you hear a lot of stories of older pastors that just never, ever, ever let go. They literally just want to die in the pulpit, or they just walk away and don't hand it off to somebody. And I'm super thankful for him and his humble heart towards God and towards me and towards others, to where he recognized it was time for him to kind of pass the baton off and let a new leader and a new church kind of run with it. And, you know, he like has just been amazing to work with and talk with, and just his humility and just willingness to see the next generation kind of take the next step has been just really encouraging and a breath of fresh air. So just thankful for him, because without him listening to God, none of this would even happen. Right. So really thankful for him. But then secondly, ever since we've been talking about this grand opening at this new place off of located at 945 Concannon Boulevard in Livermore, every time I've talked to somebody about it in that neighborhood, or somebody that I knew that isn't going to the church, or like whether it's been a social media post or just, I've just felt as we've been gearing up for this, a lot of openness from people. And just really feeling like God is in this and God's doing something. And just, I don't know, it just seems like even in that like general area around where the property is, it feels like there's a lot of openness that's I can't describe.
There's a lot of opportunity.
I just can't describe it other than I think God has been preparing us, but not just us. I think he's been preparing the people around and in that community. And he's been preparing a lot of things for this to happen. I really sense that. And the reason I sense it is because I know the difference at this point in my life between me trying to force something to happen and seeing God do something and me being obedient to him. And it just looks like God, what's happening. It looks like this is what he's doing. This isn't what I want or what I'm doing. Now, obviously it's awesome and I do want it, but like it was his idea. He's making it happen. And it reminds me of probably one of my favorite illustrations that comes from the book Purpose Driven Church. It's at the first chapter, written by Rick Warren. And he talks about riding spiritual waves and how we can't create waves ourselves, right? Like if you were to go out into the ocean and like move your arms frantically thinking that you can create a wave, like that's stupid. Your job isn't to make the waves, it's to ride them. And as leaders and as followers of Jesus, we're meant to be led by the Spirit and to ride the waves that God sends us. And I really do feel like this is the biggest wave God's ever sent in my life. Like it feels like it's a really big wave that eventually I think might even turn into a tsunami, and we get to ride it. And so I'm just thankful to be on the ride, not alone, but with you guys and our church. And if you're listening and you don't even have a church family, or you're looking for a church, or maybe you wouldn't even call yourself a Christian, whatever, like we want you to be a part of this with us. So please join us on January 5th, New Year, grand opening. We'd love to have you there. All are welcome. And God's doing an amazing thing. And we want anybody and everybody to be a part of it.
Yeah. And we wish you guys a Merry Christmas. We hope that you have an amazing time with your families and feel a sense of hope and courage as you step into the new year. And we also hope to see you on January 5th at 10 a.m. at 945 Concannon Boulevard in Livermore. So we love you guys. Yeah. And
all right.
we'll see you guys then.
See you next time.
See ya.